Hello everyone, it's Elaine. Thank you for joining me here today on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a super cute shaker card. So to start off with, I've taken my Distress ink in Picked Raspberry and I've smushed that down onto my glass mat and just spritzing that with a bit of water to loosen it up. And I'm taking some heavyweight watercolour card. It's a smooth card, has a little bit of texture but generally is quite smooth. And I am just pushing that cardstock, pressing it down into the ink and just moving it around and trying to coat all of that cardstock with my watered down pink ink. Once I'm happy with the coverage, I'm just grabbing my heat tool and drying that off, and I'm going to be adding layers to this card to get some nice different movement and texture. So once that piece is dried, I'm going back into that ink. I've not added any more colour or any more water, I'm just using what's already on my mat. As you can see, we're starting to get some nice lines and ripples back into that card or that ink to get some more interesting colours and depth of colours, and just setting that aside for a moment and getting my stamp ready. I'm using the Simon Says stamp Quilted Heart background, and the panel does have to be completely dry, and I'm using my embossing bag there to take away any static, and then I'm inking up the stamp with my Versamark ink, just pressing down quite hard. I do have to press quite hard with this stamp platform. This is the Tim Holtz stamp platform. I'm inking that up for a second time with that Versamark ink and pressing down onto that cardstock. And once I'm happy with that, I then coat this with the white pearlescent embossing powder from WOW to get a nice coverage on there, and then heat set that with my heat tool. It is quite subtle, you probably can see that there in the light. When it catches the light you can see it lovely. If I'd have wanted this to stand out a little bit more, I would suggest heat embossing before doing the ink smushing, and then you would get the white of the cardstock in the background. However, I'm just setting that aside now for a moment and I can work on my colouring. So I'm using my Polychromo pencils here. I'll list the colours on the screen. I've just got some Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I've stamped out these cute Hello Bluebird Joyful Mouse stamps. And I'm using that Winsor & Newton blending fluid. I will link it below. I'm in the UK, so this is what I can get locally in my craft store. And I just take a small little empty jam jar and a little makeup sponge, and I pop the makeup sponge into the jar and then pour some of that solution onto the makeup sponge, not so that it's completely soaked, but just so that it's moist. I'm taking my little blending paper stumps here and applying a small bit of colour in the areas where I want the shading, and then using my solution and paper blending stumps to blend out that colour. The great thing about this is you don't need lots of colours. I think I've literally used about 6 different colouring pencils to colour in these images today. My recommendation would be not to press too hard on your paper when you're blending out your colouring pencils. So I'm using a pink here for the cheeks. I'm swapping ends on my blending stump so I don't transfer any grey onto the areas where I want the pink. I find if I press lightly, I just can move the colour a bit more evenly. It doesn't go quite so streaky. And I just really love the way this blended out colouring pencil looks. Now I'm going to move on to the little bows. These are going to go in my little mice's hair, or not hair, around their ears. So you just see me there just tapping off, making sure I'm scribbling off any excess colour so that it doesn't contaminate my blue bows. And I got my blending stumps at a local craft shop. They're fairly inexpensive and you can get a variety of sizes. This one's quite a small blending stump because I'm colouring quite small images here, but they do vary in size. One thing I do need to get is I've seen the Faber Castell sort of sand block so that you can sand these stumps down. I do need to get hold of one of those. But I'm happy with how they're working for me at the moment. Just colouring a little bit of pink and purple onto my present. And just darkening up little areas, and I don't have to blend those out, I leave those as they are. So now I'm just fussy cutting out my images. These are my Cutterbee scissors, and I've sped this up. I do really take my time when I'm fussy cutting. I spent all that time colouring them, so I don't want to ruin them by not taking my time cutting them out. Just leaving a little small white border around the edge there. Now I've used my Gina K Connect glue to adhere those little bows onto my mouse or my mice, and I'm moving on to my card and shaker element. So I've got the pretty pink Posh scalloped hearts here. This is the largest heart, and I've cut several of those out just from some heavyweight white cardstock, and I'm using my Gina K Connect glue to layer about 5 or 6 of these together. And I like this glue. I do find it holds really well, and you don't need to wait too long for the glue to dry. So you get a little bit of time to move things around, but once you press down, it does seem to stick quite quickly. Just layering up another couple here. And this is just some scraps of cardstock that I had laying around. I keep everything. And then I'm moving on to my acetate piece of my shaker. So I've got the Mama Elephant Scripty birthday stamp here, or there's several stamps in that set, but I've just picked out one of the stamps, and I am inking that up with StazOn cotton white ink. I did have a bit of a problem. It's really sticky, and it really stuck to my acetate piece there, but you can see that it does show up quite well when it's on a dark background. You'll see I do lose some of the, it's hard to see basically once all the shakers all put together, but it still looks really, I really like how it turned out. So use my Gina K Connect glue again to adhere that acetate piece, and then I'm just trimming around the edges to remove the excess. Again, just using my little Cutterbee scissors there. I find they can get into really little small parts. And now I can just adhere on my top layer. This white piece does have a little bit of texture. It's kind of got a linen texture. It's still white, but I just really liked, I thought it gave it a nice little bit of interest. You can only really see that in the light though. So here I've got a piece of Miri card in silver, and I've cut out a scalloped rectangle. I believe this is the inside out stitched scalloped lawn fawn rectangles. I'll have the exact name listed down in the description box below. And this is the largest rectangle. I've applied that to an A2 side folding card base with some double-sided adhesive, and then I've also trimmed down my pink card panel to 4 by 5 1/4 and adhered that down on top of that silver Miri card. Moving on to my shaker, I'm filling my shaker with these confetti pieces. I received these in some happy mail and I love them. I thought they were really good for a birthday card. And I've just used my Gina K Connect glue to adhere that heart on top of all those confetti pieces, so they're nicely secure and they aren't going anywhere. So I've set that aside and I can work on the other elements to go on the front of my card. This is Mama Elephant Carnival Cupcakes, and I'm heat embossing these with liquid platinum embossing powder from Ranger. I've just got some plain white heavyweight cardstock. I use my embossing buddy to treat all of the cardstock. Use Versamark ink for the base of the cupcakes, and then for this top part I've used picked raspberry oxide ink and just some clear embossing powder over the top. I'm just using my little sidekick die cutting machine and the coordinating dies and just running those through. And I'm just going to add some colour to those pieces. So just adding some pink for my frosting, using my little blending stumps again and that solution. And for the bow, I'm just using some nice purpley blue colours just to make the bow pop. I'm just adding some NUVO clear shimmer pen on the top of that frosting. Make it all nice and shimmery and sparkly. I'm going to use my Gina Connect glue to adhere my mouse to the top of the cupcake. Use my reverse tweezers there to help everything set. And I've already applied the base of my cupcake to the card, and I think really I should have applied my mouse first and then my little base, because as you'll see I do end up having to cover up a little piece of my sentiment. It's not the end of the world, but if that's any tip I can give you is maybe apply your elements that are going to be covering or overhanging your shaker panel. If you've got anything on the sort of acetate piece, put that bit on first and work your way downwards. So once I've applied all the foam tape, I just remove the release papers and pop my mouse on, and now I'm just popping up this other little mouse again with some foam tape. And then I don't put any foam tape behind the present, I just use my Gina Connect glue and I adhere that one straight to the card base, just slightly behind my little mouse. Pressing that down, making sure it's secure. And now I'm just going in with a white gel pen. This is the Uniball gel pen. It's quite a broad tipped pen. Just adding some dots to the cheek and some little highlights to my cake frosting. And I'm going in with some October crystals from Studio KATIA just to finish off the sparkle and add some embellishment. Never too much sparkle on my cards. So that's my shaker card for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. All of the products I've used are listed down in the description box below and also on my blog, which is also listed in the description box. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.